to the racks. Then I make that shit back. Run up on me, get shot in the back.
It's JTV, beautiful video, Scott Show, man. Back another day. Today, Paso, we got another Killer Chronicles.
Killer Chronicles on deck. Shout out to Killer Chronicles, man, for making the dope content and covering a little bit of everything, which is kind of cool. This is Jaron from Jaron TV. I'm Pops from Pops React. Go on JaronTV.com and check out merch that we have. We have a couple things in store for you guys. Subscribe to the channel. Request the content, and then we react. This is a super dope channel. We have a lot of fun on here, and we don't waste your time.
Listen, Barrio Azteca cartel wars on the Texas border. Interesting, right? We just seen Trump. He's trying to close the borders and maybe get...
He ain't tried. Trump closed the borders.
He did, right?
You got to give him his respect for that. He shut it down. He not playing that game the Democrats is playing.
Yeah.
He shut the border down.
I said it's joining Discord. Join the Discord below. Follow me on Instagram, JTV. Follow my podcast on Instagram.
Let's go.
Do you like this hat flannel combo chat with the Harry Potter glasses? It's like a lot going on, right? It's hard to...
Hey, and I'm a B-boy, standing in my B-boy stance.
Like the video for me. Let's get this algorithm, man, and we're talking.
Me preguntaron mi nombre y también mi procedencia. Yo le dije soy de Juarez. Ahí no pide.
Fun fact, I used to live in El Paso, Texas, and I spent a lot of time in Juarez to buy cheese,
Queso.
to buy food, comida. And I spent a lot of time in Mexico, and me and my friends in high school used to go across the border.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went like once or twice. It's kind of crazy.
You have to bring your passport, obviously, right?
Yeah. But then it wasn't like it was now. Like now, it's probably a headache to get across.
Yeah.
Soy de Juarez, ahí no piden licencia.
From 2004 to 2005, an El Paso resident named Gualberto Marquez, aka Bird, sold approximately every single month with the help of a cartel and connections south of the US-Mexico border. But it was still quite a surprise to him when a man named Jeff Andes, who was Bird's boss in the business, showed up to Bird's house with duffel bags containing more than 200 pounds worth of US currency. Then simply left. It took Bird 2 whole days of doing nothing else but counting the cash, which came out to $11.8 million.
Wow!
Bird just found himself in a position that only a small percentage of human beings ever experience. He loaded the money into flat tires of courier vehicles and sent it down south to the notoriously violent border of Juarez, Chihuahua. If there was any temptation to take the money and run, it was surely tapered by this. Bird and his cohorts in the business were part of something known as the Barrio Azteca, a gang in Texas that has become synonymous with brutality and death. In the gang world, the Barrio Azteca is something akin to a private army. It is well funded. It has the backing of the Vicente Carrillo Fuentes trafficking organization, also known as the Juarez Cartel. And its members had figured out how to take advantage of both the Mexican and United States legal systems to commit murders, kidnappings, and torture with near impunity. Until one particular violent crime in March 2010 changed everything.
That's what I'm saying. All it takes is one crime where they kill innocents or a pregnant lady gets shot.
Yeah.
That's when it's over. The operation is done.
Violence brings a lot of eyes on.
Yeah.
You know, but violence comes with this business, by the way.
If you're doing crime, don't hit innocents.
Yeah, by the way.
Don't do any crime.
Violence comes with this business.
Yeah.
You sign up for that, you get this.
For the drogas.
La drogas y violencia.
Particular violent crime in March 2010 changed everything. To give you a glimpse into this bloody tale of 2 cities, we've poured over thousands of court records, obtained actual photos of the crimes and peoples involved, and tracked down first-hand accounts from numerous sources on all sides of the law, including one leader of an infamous hit squad who admitted responsibility for nearly 1,000 murders. This is the story of how a handful of men incarcerated in the Texas prison system formed a small, ragtag group that evolved into an empire of narco-traffickers and trained hitmen that has caught the attention of those in the highest levels of American government. This is the Barrio Azteca. Our story begins in 1986 in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, when a group of West Texas prisoners who were mostly from the El Paso area banded together to form what would become the Barrio Azteca. Like almost every other prison gang, the Barrio Azteca was formed from a need for self-protection, as groups like the Texas Syndicate and the Texas Mexican Mafia were dominating the state prison system and taking advantage of prisoners who didn't have the backing of a well-established gang. As the Barrio Azteca developed, it became known by other names, such as Del West, the Familia Azteca, the Arrow Empire, or Los Indios. During its formation period, its founders drafted a document entitled The Sacred Rules of the Barrio Azteca. They require members of small neighborhood gangs in El Paso to leave their old beefs at the door and unite under this new, singular organization. The original Sacred Rules outlined a ranking system that goes from prospects, known as esquinas, all the way up to a 5-captain commission that leads the gang, including a capo mayor, who is given more power than the other 4 capos. The Sacred Rules specifically outlaw cowardice, encourage members to speak up and voice their opinion, and include this dire warning: once you become a brother and in case of war, you will have to go against your own blood. Think carefully before making the final decision. This rule was no joke. During the events that we'll cover, there were indeed incidents where a member ended up attempting to kill their own flesh and blood. Despite the obvious risk of keeping written records of criminal activity, the Barrio Azteca lives and breathes on the written word. This is true not just of communications from its incarcerated leaders, but also the trade, as well as its membership. Since its foundation, the Barrio Azteca has grown to an estimated 3,000 members, mostly based in the neighboring cities of El Paso and Juarez, so its leaders rely heavily on the written word to keep tabs on its membership.
But that's pretty interesting, right? The Barrio Azteca, but there's got to be other cartels that could like knock them off. Like there's got to be other cartels that are way bigger than them, right? It could fuck up their operation. You think?
No, because there is and there isn't. I think, and from what I've seen from like watching Narcos and stuff like that, each crossing has they divvy it up. So this cartel deals with the Juarez border. And the other borders are dealt by other cartels. So they kind of stay out each other's way. I'm sure they cross paths and they fight over it, but this cartel is in charge of that border crossing into the United States.
Rely heavily on the written word to keep tabs on its membership. New members are brought in by padriones, or godfathers or sponsors, translated roughly, who vouch for their suitability and are often held responsible for their mistakes. Once someone is granted membership, they become a soldier, with the potential of making sergeant, lieutenant, or maybe even captain if they prove their worth.
They have women with them too.
For much of its history, the gang's brain trust existed in a place called the Caulfield Unit, a high-security Texas prison that housed not just high-ranking Barrio Azteca members, but leaders of other prison gangs as well. Within the confines of the prison, Barrio Azteca captains and lieutenants keep lengthy lists of members, as well as another document known as the Muleta List, which documents ex-members who've been given a green light to be assaulted or killed.
Oh, shit.
And when the Barrio Azteca decided to form a peace treaty with both the Texas Syndicate and the Mexican Army, the truce was negotiated and ratified between gang leaders in Caulfield. Outside prison walls, at least one member is typically given the role of keeping the bank for the gang, a risky position that can result in a death penalty for those who get greedy, make mistakes, or fail to pay other members what they're owed. One high-ranking member, David Meraz, aka Chicho, was even killed for spending gang funds on his own heroin rather than the captain's commissary accounts.
And he was a high-ranking member.
Yeah, I guess he violated some rules.
I'm just saying, you would think he would be spared, but that's how strong the program is. That like we don't care if you're high ranking. Like, you're not gonna just be
Yeah, you have to follow the rules.
exactly.
And a conversation.
An act of embezzlement that was discovered thanks to the Barrio Azteca's thorough bookkeeping. The gang makes no bones about partaking in a wide range of criminal activity, but its two biggest revenue sources come from drug sales and extortion. When members of the Barrio Azteca talk about opening a store, or tienda, what they really mean is that they've leaned on a local drug dealer to make him or her pay a regular fixed rate in exchange for protection. A man named Benjamin T-Top Alvarez, who served as Capo Mayor for the time period we're discussing here, alongside fellow capos Manuel Cardoza, aka Tolón, Carlos Perea, aka Shotgun, Ramon Renteria, aka Spooky, and Eduardo Ravello, aka Tablas, who stayed out of jail and headed up the Barrio Azteca's operations in Juarez, and who was for years a top 10 most wanted fugitive by the
He stood out of
FBI
jail?
until his capture in 2018. As the gang grew, it branched out from the El
It's so weird
Paso
because like
and
you
Juarez.
get caught and then like what do you do? Like your life is over pretty much. If you're a top FBI fugitive, you're getting life, right, for the most part.
Yeah, but it's tough too because sometimes like you get away for so long that you probably go back to your old habits.
Yeah.
Like I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like I'm never talking to you again. Like I'm gone. Like if I know I'm wanted, I'm gone.
Yeah. Because you know, like you just don't want to face the fears of not even the fears. It's just like
No, they're gonna watch everything, all our phone calls.
Yeah,
They're
it's
gonna track
over.
you down. Oh, send me some money. They track all that. You getting caught.
yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah, because even if I don't blame you for doing that, because even if you're in prison, you're pretty much gone anyway. So you got to pick your battle.
Yeah, I'm trying my best to stay out of prison. I'm gone.
Yeah.
See you later. I'm gone.
into the East New Mexico area, giving the gang a huge amount of control over border cities in all three regions. Then, in the 2000s, the Barrio Azteca made an alliance that not only astronomically increased its wealth and power, but also put the gang at odds with one of the most powerful cartels on planet Earth. The El Paso-Juarez border crossing is not just one of the busiest in the world, it's also one of the most lucrative in the trade. Separated only by the Rio Grande River, the two cities are defined by their relationships with one another, and their stark contrasts. While on paper, El Paso is a relatively crime-free area, the city of Ciudad Juarez has historically been one of the most violent places on Earth, with a murder rate in the thousands during the relevant time period covered here.
Thousands.
Drug cartels in Mexico generate huge profits that completely rely on couriers being able to slip through the border, either by smuggling drugs in their cars, inside their own bodies, or by finding ways around the international border crossings. Because of this, a mutually beneficial deal was struck between the Juarez cartel and the Barrio Azteca, which provided support for the cartel's drug operations in Texas, and teamed up with an ultra-violent cartel-backed militia known as La
La
Linea.
Linea.
The organizations banded together to create a massive import-export business.
Wow.
Imports into the United States, which came into El Paso to be distributed all over the country.
Oh my God.
Exports included swaths of cash, firearms, and shockingly, murder victims. For you see, the stark differences between how law enforcement worked in El Paso versus Juarez were so obvious, the Barrio Azteca realized that it was actually much easier to kidnap Americans the gang wanted to kill and bring them into Mexico to be murdered, rather than doing the violence within El Paso or Texas. As the FBI began taking aim at the Barrio Azteca in the mid-2000s through 2010, they heard countless stories from Barrio Azteca dropouts about dealers or former gang members who were forcibly dragged into the trunk of a car or tricked into traveling to Juarez willingly, tortured to death, and placed in a drum of acid, never to be
What?
heard from again.
Yeah,
More
it's kind of weird because you're still gonna get charged, right? They're gonna take you back to America. Let's say they find the killer. He's coming back to
Yeah,
America.
but that's why they did all the dirt over there because it's
No laws, basically.
this lawless in a sense because you can probably pay off people too.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys have a lot of money. Like this is a syndicate. This is not like no, you and I decide to kidnap somebody, take it to Mexico. Like, these
Yeah.
guys are the real deals. The real deals, my friend.
Commonly, though, the Barrio Azteca's Juarez wing didn't bother to conceal the murders in the slightest.
Oh my God.
And that's where a man named Jesus Chavez Castillo, aka El Camello, enters our story.
Oh shit.
El Cameo was born in Chihuahua, but spent most of his childhood in Los Angeles and El Paso. He was deported as a young adult, and after another arrest, was sent to federal prison in Oakdale, Louisiana, which is where he first became associated with the Barrio Azteca. He helped make shanks for the gang and perform other menial tasks, but wasn't made a member. After his release and yet another deportation, Cameo decided to live in Ciudad Juarez. There, he ran an auto theft ring which landed him in the city's notoriously violent and corrupt Cerezo prison. Behind prison walls, where drugs, weapons,
he did
and
prison
even
time in America, then he go to prison time in
He
Mexico.
got caught 3 times by the feds, and then he went to Mexico and still went to jail.
The life of a criminal, I guess, right?
The money, man. These guys are making a lot of coin, man.
firearms were smuggled in with relative ease, Cameo was granted BA membership and given a padrino, who was shot and killed during a prison riot a short time later. After being released from Cerezo, Cameo found his calling in life. Not vehicle theft, not trafficking, not making prison shanks, but murder.
Yeah.
Cameo's first killing was for a BA member named Margarito, who ordered the victim beaten with a baseball bat and stabbed to death over a drug dispute. Recalling the incident years later, Cameo simply stated, "I beat him until he stopped moving." Cameo went on to commit about 5 more murders for Margarito, then started working for a Barrio Azteca lieutenant named Rafael Diaz, better known as Rafa. Rafa Diaz offered Cameo a position in a quick response Barrio Azteca hit team in Juarez. Hit teams were highly organized for the singular purpose of killing cartel enemies. They were given militia training, equipped with machine guns, assault weapons, grenades, bulletproof vests, precision rifles, and of course, handguns. And for those who joined them, murder became a matter of routine. They learned body disposal, where to shoot into a vehicle to achieve the best chance of a kill, and how to speak in code on radios that Barrio Azteca members used to communicate with hit team leaders in order to evaluate targets and call for backup in real time. The use of hit teams may have been necessary for the Barrio Azteca in the Juarez cartel anyway, but in the late 2000s, La Linea in the Barrio Azteca became an essential part of the cartel's makeup. That's because, in 2007, the Sinaloa cartel made a power push for the El Paso border crossing, thrusting the Barrio Azteca, La Linea, and the Juarez cartel in an all-out war against the Sinaloa cartel.
I was just saying
And
that.
it's
You see this, that doesn't work like that. There's going to be conflict with drugs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, so that's why.
It would be interesting if they would find a way to
work it
get out
Yeah.
without the beef, and then maybe would they still be getting money?
Yeah, right.
Subsidiaries like Doble A or Los Mexicles. It was during this time that Cameo began working directly under another hit team leader named Arturo Gallegos Castrellon, who went by many nicknames like Benny, Farmero, Güero, Pecas, and Turi. An innately paranoid man, Benny assigned his hit team a strict quota of 8 murders per day.
What?
Cameo's job would be to assign different hit teams to particular victims, in squads of 3 or 4 people, and send them all over the city of Juarez to complete their task. People would be murdered for trivialities, like having a skin color that made someone believe they were from an area where Sinaloa cartel members commonly lived. People would be kidnapped and tortured until they admitted what the Juarez cartel wanted them to say, then killed and left for authorities to find them. One man was simply killed because his father, a man named Grena, had turned his back on the Juarez cartel in favor of Sinaloa. Cameo was told to make an example out of Grena's son, so they disinterred him and beheaded him with a machete, then left his body in a sewage canal as an ultimate sign of disrespect. In the late 2000s, Cameo was arrested by the Mexican army under a false name, brought to an undisclosed location, and waterboarded, burned, and beaten by men who demanded that he give up Jesus Chavez Castillo's whereabouts, unaware the man they were torturing was in fact Jesus Chavez Castillo. Under the belief that he'd be killed if he revealed his true identity, Cameo kept his mouth shut until he was once again transferred to Cerezo prison. He would later claim that he obtained a phone inside the prison and used it to tip off Rafa Diaz about the whereabouts of the prison's warden, who was assassinated as he left the facility's grounds that day. Once he was released, Cameo rejoined the Barrio Azteca hit team and continued his day-to-day life of murder.
Under a new name.
Years later, on a
Yo.
How sick is that? They grab you, but they think you're somebody else. They're looking for you. They asking somebody else where you at, but it's really you that they asking.
That's some unorganized
you.
shit, though.
Or on behalf of the military or the cops?
Yeah.
The biggest difference is the advancement of technology. Like they probably have technology, but that is unorganized. Like, how can you grab the guy to ask him, we're looking for this person, but that's the person you're looking for. You're asking him where that person's at. So he ain't gonna tell on himself.
federal courtroom witness stand, Cameo would casually recall his career as a professional murderer and how he tried to keep track of the number of victims for about 7 months. A jury heard this exchange between him and the assistant U.S. attorney Jay Bauer. "What number did you get to?" "I think we stopped when we got to 800.
What?
"Did you keep counting after that?" "No. That's where we stopped counting. We just kept killing people."
What?
Cameo's life may have continued on this way for decades. But in March 2010, a white Honda Pilot with Texas license plates changed everything. Benny spotted the Pilot near his home and instantly grew paranoid that it had been sent by the Sinaloa cartel to surveil or assassinate him. He ordered hit squads led by men named Jose Guadalupe Diaz, aka Zorro, and Martinez Perez Marufo, aka Popeye, to take care of it, and told Popeye the car looked like it was occupied by, quote, foreigners from the Mexican state of Guerrero. When Popeye failed to locate the Pilot, Benny called a Barrio Azteca lieutenant named Chino Valles and tried to pin down its registration address, since Chino had connections in both Mexico and Texas who could do such a thing. But this went nowhere. The Pilot seemingly vanished into thin air. Then, on March 14th, 2010, Benny received a tip from a Barrio Azteca lookout that the car he had wanted had been spotted at a child's birthday celebration at a party hall in Juarez. Benny immediately took action, ordering Zorro and Popeye to the party to follow and kill the vehicle's occupants. But it wasn't a Sinaloa cartel party after all. Attendees included employees of the United States consulate in Juarez, including a married couple named Leslie Enriquez, who is 16 weeks pregnant with her second child,
I heard about
her husband, Arthur Redelfs, and their young daughter, as well as another consulate employee named Hilda Antillon, her husband Jorge Salcido, and their 3 children. Both couples owned white SUVs, but neither exactly matched the description of the vehicle Benny had seen outside his house earlier in the month. But for the Barrio Azteca hit team, it was better to be safe than sorry.
Wow.
Zorro was assigned to trail a white Toyota with Texas plates occupied by Arthur Redelfs and Leslie Enriquez, while Popeye began to follow a white Honda Pilot with Mexican plates occupied by Jorge Salcido and his kids. While Benny and Zorro reported to Benny that neither car nor its occupants matched the description he'd given them of the suspicious vehicle days earlier,
it didn't matter.
Benny was unmoved.
Right.
Quote, "Hit him anyway, man." Both Zorro and Popeye conducted their hits as they'd done hundreds of times before. Zorro's backup car helped box in the victims. Then Zorro pulled up alongside Leslie and Arthur and opened fire, just a few feet from the Juarez City Hall and within sight of the United States border. Popeye simply drove the Pilot and unloaded his firearm into the door, while Jorge Salcido's wife, Hilda, sat in her vehicle a few feet away and watched the entire thing, unable to help. When the shooting was over, she ran over to her husband's car and realized, to her horror, that her 3 children had been struck by bullet fragments as well. Fortunately, they all survived.
Oh, okay.
Zorro excitedly confirmed the murders on the radio, per hit squad protocol. "That's it, he's down. He's down at City Hall, man, he's down. That asshole ran, but I caught up to him there." It took just a few hours for the hit squad to realize its mistake. That quickly, they'd given the US government a reason to get involved in the bloody streets of Juarez and attempt to put a dent in the Barrio Azteca at home and abroad. It just so happened that the FBI already had 2 open investigations into the Barrio Azteca's operations in Texas and New Mexico when the consulate murders occurred. Now, those 2 probes were consolidated into the Juarez case, and FBI agents were brought into Mexico to assist. One major break in the case came when they were able to flip a technician who'd been hired by the Juarez cartel to encrypt the hit squad's radio transmissions, and who was able to help them obtain recordings of the back and forth between Benny, Zorro, and Popeye as they stalked and murdered the 3 consulate victims.
Who's recording?
With the killers identified, the Mexican military tracked down.
What do you mean? Like, oh, like the recording?
He said to track down recordings. Like, who's recording?
Yeah.
That should not be recorded, that behavior.
Yeah.
And arrested Camello, and this time they identified him accurately. After Camello's arrest, the cartel and Barrio Azteca responded in typical fashion by murdering his wife and stepdaughter and sending 2 men dressed in suits and posing as insurance agents to talk their way into Camello's parents' home and to kidnap them at gunpoint. The parents were taken to a secret location and changed to a sofa, given nothing but a bucket to use as a toilet, and held for days until they were rescued in a raid by the Mexican federal government. After that ordeal, Camello vowed revenge, and with pending extradition to the United States, he opted to use the only real card left in his deck. He would cooperate with the FBI and take the witness stand whenever they needed him. Even if it is the last thing I do, I'm going to fuck all of them and also everything they did with you guys.
Wow.
I'm going to get all of them. Not one of them is going to get saved.
He had no choice. They were snatching up his parents.
At this point, the
Yeah.
They snatched up his parents. They killed his wife. They killed his stepdaughter.
But he probably still not coming home though if he killed all those people, right? We'll see.
I don't know. We're going to find out in the next 2-3 minutes.
FBI had already led a massive prosecution of the Barrio Azteca in 2008, which was featured in the popular TV show Gangland. The prosecution resulted in Azteca captains T-Top, Tolón, and Shotgun receiving federal prison terms that required T-Top and Shotgun to be sent to the strict confines of ADX Florence in Colorado. This new prosecution, brought by a superseding indictment in March 2011, would target the 2 remaining captains on the outside, Spooky and Tablas, as well as 31 other members, from lieutenants to Zorro, Benny, and Popeye, to wives and girlfriends of members who served as low-level drug couriers, note passers, and money launderers for the gangs. It was one of the biggest, most sprawling prosecutions in United States history.
Wow.
And because of the number of defendants who remain at large in Mexico or who are backlogged in the extradition process, it is still going on to this day.
What?
Benny's 2015 trial created a huge national splash when Camello took the stand as the Juarez cartel version of Sammy the Bull. While Camello claimed to be a changed man who was trying to do something positive with his life, prosecutors didn't take too much care in trying to pretty up his image. They leaned into his admitted sins as something that actually improved his credibility as a witness, who understood the functions of the Barrio Azteca, and they didn't make much effort to downplay his desire for revenge against his former gang either. 7 years after Benny was convicted in the consulate murders, Zorro and Popeye were brought in before a federal judge in West Texas, and once again, Camello became this trial's star witness. Over 3 days on the witness stand, he listened to radio recordings of them and identified both shooters by the vocal tones, while also implicating the gang in car bombings, assassinations, and a wide range of violent and non-violent criminal offenses. Like Benny, both Zorro and Popeye were convicted and received multiple sentences of life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Tablas was arrested in 2018, but court records indicate that he has not yet crossed the border into the United States. Spooky, the 5th captain to be indicted, died by suicide inside a federal detention facility just 1 week into his trial, after watching numerous former Barrio Azteca members and friends testify against him. Another Barrio Azteca high-ranking member, Hector Silent Galindo, was later promoted to captain and received a life sentence before this promotion could take effect. As for Camello, his fate is a bit harder to pin down. The Bureau of Prisons registry shows numerous people named Jesus Chavez, Jesus Castillo, or Jesus Chavez Castillo, Yet none of them exactly line up with Camayo's age and start date of incarceration.
No way, he's home?
It is possible that due to his incredibly high profile status as a government informant, he's being protected in the prison system with a pseudonym. In 2022, when Zorro and Popeye went to trial, Camayo testified that he was still behind bars, yet hoped to get out and be released on witness protection into the United States someday. With Tablas and other targets of the 2011 prosecution still either fugitives or awaiting extradition to the US, it is possible that the feds are waiting until Camayo's use as a witness has run its course before they even float the possibility of filing a motion to release him from prison. So that's the story of the Barrio Azteca of the 2000s and 2010s. And while the gang's influence was impacted by this case, it remains a powerful influence in the international drug trafficking world to this day. We'll close this video with a mystery of sorts by bringing you back to the original story told by Gualberto Bird Marquez and the $11.8 million brought to his El Paso home by Jeff Andes. According to Bird's story, Andes dropped off the funds, went to Mexico, and planned to return a few days later to retrieve another $1.2 million from someone in Chicago. But it never came to be. Like so many others during this time, Andes seems to have vanished into thin air, never to be heard from again. Bird said he assumed Andes was just another victim of the high-stakes world they both inhabited. But it seems unlikely that his exact fate will ever be known.
Wow. That was some good shit.
That was good. Thank you for tuning in. We out of here.
Peace.
And I know how it gets, so I gotta stay low, now move my knot. I don't trust no nigga, I don't trust no man, ain't no friends, everybody get shot. You never know how nigga gon' throw, I'm hitting the flow with a couple of shots. You better move, you better duck, either way to go, you'll get got.